In this video, I'm going to tell you why small businesses usually struggle to finish what they start and what to do to avoid that. So, what I've seen is that small business owners, they do not have shortage of ideas, okay? You're bubbling with ideas all the time. Every day you have several ideas for your businesses. But the challenge is to finish these ideas, these projects, when you begin them. The problem is not that you don't have the motivation or the skills to do this project. Usually what I've seen missing, it's the structure and the clarity about what you start and then what you need to finish. So one thing that you need to have in mind, the first thing you need to have in mind, is that the energy you need to start a project is completely different from the energy you need to finish a project. Because usually, we're very motivated, excited, and eager to begin a project. And we kind of begin it as a sprint. But that's not what it is. Okay, so yes, you've got to be ready for the start, pumped up and all ready for the start. But the finishing energy, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So the energy you need to keep on going through that project, to finish that project, it's basically about balancing. Okay, it's that balancing that you allocate energy progressively, really, as you need it. So starting a project is completely different from finishing it in terms of energy, of what is going on. And one thing also I've seen is that when you don't have structure, when you don't have clarity, you're not sure where you are in your project. And so you don't have these physical progress markers that are telling you where you are in your project. So you don't see your progress. So it means that as you go along, enthusiasm fades. Okay? You're losing your motivation. You're losing your enthusiasm for the project because you don't really understand, what you've done, where you're going, what you still have to do. And you don't have these things that are telling you, yes, we're doing well, we're in the right direction, let's keep on going. You don't have that. So of course, the enthusiasm fades until you completely lose it and you just stop the project and never finish it. Of course, I've been talking lack of clarity. And that's true that, if you don't have clear goals, and I've seen that many times, that actually the big problem is right at the start, the clear goals, the clear ideas of what needs to be done. Well, that leads to confusion, that leads to rework, that leads to wasting time, to conflict, to argument, to misunderstanding. And so, of course, people want to get away from that, so they don't want to work on the project anymore. And so, once again, you've begun in very good spirit, full of enthusiasm, but because your goals were unclear, everybody's frustrated, nobody knows exactly where we are, what needs to be done. And again, it's the same point as before, enthusiasm fades, and because you have unclear goals, the project just peters out and you never finish it. Of course, another way of not finishing projects is, to jump from one project to another. Okay, this shiny object syndrome? No, you read something, someone says, wow, that looks great, I'm going to do that for my business. Yes, I'm sure it will improve things. Next week you begin. Okay, yes, full of enthusiasm. Yeah, it's gonna work. And then you talk with somebody who is telling you what they're doing or things like that or whatever, and then, oh, I like that. or you see something on social media, oh, that's great, and you keep on jumping from one thing to the next, not knowing whether it's good for your business, whether it's the right thing to do, how you're going to do it, and basically you never finish anything. You start 15 things and you finish 0. Absolutely nothing. You don't finish anything. And the traps I've seen, okay, that kind of summarizes all that, why you don't finish, is that there's no clear roles. Okay, there's no clear roles. People in the project don't really know what they're supposed to be doing, what their responsibilities are. There's no deadlines, these kind of markers. By then we should have done that, and by then we should have done that. Well, there's no deadlines. You don't have any markers, so you don't know if you're on track, if you're not, and if there's no deadline, well, if it's not done this week, it will be done next week or the week after. Okay? Which means that overall, all that means that there is no accountability at all on the project. And if nobody is accountable, everybody will either drop the ball or pass the buck. And nobody is accountable for the project. So at the end, nobody cares. Nobody finishes the project. So that's the main traps and the main things why most small businesses do not finish most of what they begin, what they start. So how can project structure, project management structure and techniques help? Okay, and here I'm going to give you really just simple things to do. Okay, so first set some weekly goals for the project. Okay, what you should do this week. What are your goals this week in the project? With responsibilities, accountabilities, with ensuring, of course, that the time is there and whatever you need, whether it's the money, equipment, material, whatever you need, that it's there to do that. Checklist, okay, so that's to check that you've got everything and that you've done things. And review, do regular reviews. You have your weekly goals, okay, quick meeting, beginning of the week, okay, this is what we're doing. Checklist during the week, a review at the end of the week, okay? And again, it doesn't take long. It doesn't need to status, basically. It can just be a few minutes, 15 minutes, at the beginning of the week, at the end of the week, and a few minutes to go through checklist during the week. It doesn't take long. But that will keep the momentum alive in your project. Earlier on in that video, I was talking about these progress markers. So you need to have these progress markers to say, yes, okay, we've achieved that. We've not achieved the whole project, it's not all done, but we've achieved this, and then we've achieved that, and we've achieved that. Okay, so it is about this small milestone or bigger milestone during your project to check that they're there. And when you're there to celebrate them, when you've checked that milestone, when you've achieved it, celebrate your progress, because progress fuels persistence. Okay, a marathon is 1 kilometer after another, after another, after another. And these checks, celebrating, okay, I've done that, I can do more, keep going. That keeps the momentum alive. So you need really to check on the milestones and to celebrate these. And so in a way, what does it mean, having these milestones, celebrating the milestones, having this structure, of communicating the weekly goals, the reviews, going through checklists and things like that? It's basically putting in place a finishing mindset. Because just like you have the mindset that you like starting things in your business, you need the right mindset to finish things. So it's about building that finishing mindset. And that mindset is clarity on what you do, on the goals, on the responsibilities, on the accountability, consistency, weekly goals, checklists, reviews, being consistent, and intensity, going to the next milestones and the next and the next, and keeping that intensity with celebration, that momentum with celebration. And what happened then, to conclude, if I can say, is that you will realize that every finished project will create confidence and capacity for the next one. And so the more projects you finish, of course you don't need to do everything and anything, but the really important projects that you start, the more of these you finish, the better you will become at finishing these projects and at doing them efficiently. So that's it for this video. If you want more information, and really if you want to begin to work on how you can structure your projects and the way you do your project in your small business, well then check out my book, Jargon Free, Very Practical Project Power. Link to the book in the description.